the achievement gap. It's more important to me that I teach them in a way that they can learn. I told you that many of them can't read. So we have to teach them in different ways. I have a stray dog program. We teach dog training by using stray dogs in collaboration with the Humane Society. See, that teaches them to care about another living thing. It teaches them to be able to love something, because nobody ever loved them in many instances. And it teaches them to have to show up every single day to take care of that dog. See, in many instances, they identify with the dog. Stray, nobody cares about it, and just run in the streets. Chess. I utilize chess at our school. In chess, you make a bad move, you lose your queen. In life, make a bad move, you lose your life. See, in chess, we teach deliberation. We teach you have to anticipate the next move. See, because without being able to control your behavior, you can't learn. And so I go all over the United States of America now, only because Jeff Truesdale, a wonderful writer for the People magazine, wrote a great article about our school. A wonderful article about me that kind of went viral in the educational arena. So Arnie Duncan thought he would come and visit our school, the Secretary of Education. Then Randy Weigart, who's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, thought that she would come and she would visit our school. Then Matt Lauer became very interested. Matt Lauer, wherever he is, I just love him so much. He became so interested in our school that, irrespective of the fact that CBS Morning Show and the CBS Evening News had carried a story about our school with Russ Mitchell, who lived in St. Louis, so he was very interested. Matt said, I want to do something anyway. And so last Christmas, around that time frame, I did a show for the Today Show. And after that, Walmart came in and brought me $100,000 for the children. And after that, 2 politicians. They don't agree on anything. A Democrat politician who's probably the most liberal in Congress, Claire McCaskill, and Roy Blunt, a Republican, the most conservative. They just fought over contraception or whether women had a right to do whatever. Now, you can't even get them in the same room in the state of Missouri. They don't agree on anything, but they thought it important enough to ask me to come to Washington. But I said, I won't come without my children represented. I took 4 children with me to Washington, D.C. And they made all of the arrangements for the children to come on the floor, and they read into the congressional record the things that we were doing in St. Louis at the Innovative Concept Academy. The 2 of them together. C-SPAN carried it, the children were excited. Then they made arrangements for us to go to the White House. And then they made arrangements for us to go in the corridors of the U.S. Supreme Court. And I'm saying to myself, there are lawyers all over America and judges that would kill to have this opportunity to touch the 3 branches of government in real life, not for bad reasons. Your names were called and read into the congressional records because you're trying to be decent and law-abiding, and you're trying to learn. And so, as our children progress, as they try to matriculate, I know that it is imperative that I keep them out of court, the school-to-prison pipeline. And as I travel all over the country, I tell judges, listen, you have to do something different. School board members, you have to do something different. School board members, don't send your children to court, to the juvenile court, because of a schoolyard fight. Why are you sending them to school or to court? Because they had a joint in their pocket. Well, I'm a little different. I tell the kids to bring all their drugs to school, and they bring them, and of course, George and Kilo are there, and we just collect the dope, and we go to the bathroom, and we flush it. And then I ask them to bring more. And we'll flush it. And so the kids, they start to say, you know what? The judge keep tricking us. We bring it, the dogs find it, he flushes it. Bring me some more. Well, we don't have drugs in our building. Because when the kids come, they tell the other children, listen, don't bring your dope because those little dogs, because they're passive. They're not aggressive dogs. They don't really like you. They really work it. Because when they sit next to you, that means maybe you got something. And it's okay to rub them. They'll let you rub them. But if you leave, stay right with you. School to prison pipeline. I talk to judges all over this country. Hey, you are the problem. We are the problem in many instances. Because what we're doing is we are allowing the state to drop these kids out of school. Administrative dropouts, as I call them. Expelled from school. They send them to us and we adjudicate them. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. You adjudicate a child for a stick of marijuana and you lock them up. Doesn't matter whether you lock them up for a week or whether you lock them up for 30 days. The jury formality of learning continues. So if you lock them up for weeks, when that child returns back to the community, that child not only knows more about marijuana, but now he knows how to cook crack cocaine, how to make methamphetamines, how to load an assault weapon, how to rob you, how to burglarize you. Now that kid knows more about criminality than you could ever dream. It doesn't make sense. Why should you care as lawyers? Why should you care? Well, you should care because all over America, just as the legislatures enacted those silly laws involving zero tolerance and safe schools, they also enacted laws that say that when a child reaches a certain age, you got to release that child back to the community. In my state, it's 18. It doesn't matter whether the child has committed murder, robbery, or rape. Unless that child has been transferred to adult court to stand trial as an adult, when that child reaches the age of 18, that child returns back to your community. Again, that begs the question, how do you want that child back? You want him back with a more criminal mind, a menace to the community? Well, I can tell you that if that child is 18 years old and that child's been locked up for 4 years, that's not an 18-year-old I want living next door to me. He has no skills. He can't read. He can't get a job. How is he going to take care of himself? He's going to commit crime right next door to you. It begs the question. Whether you don't want to be an activist, some judges don't want to be activists, or whether You don't want to be a socialist. Just be selfish. I don't want him next door to me, so let me fix him or let me fix her. How can you do that as lawyers? I know we don't have any judges in the room because I asked Kay. How can you do that as lawyers? Well, a lot of things that you can do. I like the student court. I like the student court. I like for lawyers and law students to be able to get into these various high schools and create the student court system and let the students start to resolve some of those problems. They take ownership. They're engaged. And if you take the worst child, pick the worst child in the school and make him the judge, all the other kids will follow. Expectations of being decent and responsible. Lawyers can certainly get involved as mentors. Now, I was listening this morning. Young man on the end said, well, I can't hire African American men. Well, my experience has been that it is more difficult for African American men to identify with delinquent African American boys. That's been my experience. They tend to do better with African American women and white people, and not African American men. And most folk are shocked when I say that, unless I'm talking to a group of African American men. And they agree. Why? Because most of the children that I see will often quote to me Tupac, I have no love for him. He's talking about his daddy. That African American male who has run out on him, who's in prison, who's been violent towards their mom, who never ever does what he says he's going to do. It's very difficult for African American men to come to my school and teach. It's very difficult. And so, if we are concerned about African American men, and we should be, it's a training process and it's a learning curve for them as well. So just because you don't have any African American men in your law firm or where you are that can go out and reach out to these African American boys, don't worry. You can still do it. The response will perhaps be more favorable with you anyway. And so you can mentor. You can certainly read, because many of my children can't read, and they're no different than any other child in urban America anywhere. Many can't read. So reading, mentorships, student courts, truancy courts, those are all areas that lawyers can just knock on the door, the principal's door, and say, here I am, can I help? I have a great idea. I'm going to sit down because I can talk for the next 3 or 4 hours about this issue. I have somebody here that's in to juvenile detention. And he's here and he's listening, and I certainly appreciate you being here from the Massachusetts Division of Youth Services, and I certainly appreciate you being here. And you guys are going to visit Missouri, hopefully, and see what we're doing there. If you guys were judges, I would have to acknowledge that there's a difference between elected judges and appointed judges. Elected judges are just scared, and rightfully so. They're afraid. And when I talk to them all over the country, that's the issue. They always raise the issue of being an elected judge. How can I have an alternative for somebody that has committed an assault or committed a robbery or somebody that has committed a crime and you're saying to me,